Wonderful. All right, cool. Thank you everybody so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here at HBCU Con, a con that I was really looking forward to this year. So I'm very glad and very blessed to be a part of it. My name is Kurenai Kiba, and I'm here to teach you all about what I know when it comes to color theory and cosplay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're just going to go ahead and get right into it just so I don't overlap too much on the next person. I'll make sure to go ahead and have the chat up, no problem, just so I can make sure that I can keep tabs on any questions. But do me a huge favor and just hold all questions until the end, unless it's absolute dire. Once it's absolute, like unless it can go ahead and hold off at the end, just so I can make sure that I'm totally focused on your questions, I'm all here for it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Boom. Okay, so we're here. And then I'm going to start presenting. All right. Okay. So welcome again to Color Theory and Cosplay. This is one of my panels that I absolutely adore teaching, strictly because this is exactly where my background shines. I am an artist, but I'm also a cosplayer. I have gone to school for graphic design. And not only that, I am a third generation seamstress in my family, passed down from my mom. So it's one of those things where I feel that it's one of those topics that that's where my worlds collide when it comes to color theory and applying cosplay and applying it to cosplay. I always think that this topic is super helpful when it comes to people who choose to cosplay, who like to cosplay these wonderful things, but just don't quite have that one thing that they're missing just to make their cosplay pop. All right, so just to go ahead and let you know, just go and follow me. The reason I have Facebook and Instagram first is because that is the one that I most frequent. So if you have a question for me, aside from this, you can always reach me on my Facebook page or my Instagram. But then I'm also on Pinterest. I'm also on Tumblr. I've just started really utilizing Twitter, and I'm really getting into that. I find it really interesting. And I'm going to start building my YouTube page again, because there's a few people who have asked me for certain tutorials and everything like that. And I really feel that YouTube will probably be the best way to present those tutorials, just so I can go ahead and share what knowledge I have with y'all. Okay, so why care about color theory? It can guide you in the right direction when designing your cosplay. And this is one in particular that I know that a lot of people do struggle with when it comes to really taking that character and translating it into real life. How can I go ahead and I can take whatever is in front of me, something that has inspired me on paper, and literally become it. And one of the ways to really kind of get you out of a sort of bind is by utilizing color theory, just so you can continue creating. It can guide a viewer's emotions. A lot of people, when it comes to color, there are so many things that go behind certain colors. There are certain colors that invoke certain emotions, from blue meaning sad, red being angry or passionate, yellow being high energetic now. And there's so many things that we use every day that has those colors that, goes ahead and moves us to these different directions when it comes to our emotions. Right down to that study where they were talking about a jail cell that was colored in that, I believe the Pantone was called millennial pink, because it soothes. And they noticed that there were, a lot more calmer inmates in that one. So just little things like that is so amazing. And you never really understand, like, you never really quite understand just how much color can really make or break anything. Colors can make or break what you're going for, huh? So we're just going to go right back into it. Um, Colors can go ahead and really create an aura. They can, of course, yes, back to emotions, but also going around. And if you're trying to go in for something in particular, like if you're going for something, if you're going to have a type of world or a type of setting that you're trying to show off when it comes to your cosplay, like for example, there was a cosplayer that did Master Chief, but he did it in all nothing but like pastels and pinks, and he went ahead and he had the shape of Hello Kitty. Not quite a dystopian color scheme would quite work for that mashup in particular. So it can go ahead and really kind of change the setting in which your cosplay is from, should you choose to change it, or should you go ahead and translate that from its original either comic or anime or anything like that into real life and just really kind of have that nice little chef's kiss to your cosplay. And it could create a better understanding in the artist's mind. One thing that I really enjoy when it comes to people really breaking down and understanding color theory, really kind of applying it, is that I feel that it's always been a really nice bridge between the artist who's created the character and the artist or cosplayer that has chosen to become it. And there's a reason why, as an artist, that there are certain colors that we choose, certain patterns that we utilize for this, all those kinds of wonderful, wonderful things. And I think that this is just one more thing that we can do to better understand the artists who create these wonderful characters that we like to become. Okay, so this is going to be the breakdown of my panel. You'll, when you're with me, you're going to be learning and understanding common color theory terminology, palettes, character design, makeup tips, as well as a little bit of lighting. We're not going to cover as much when it comes to the makeup tips and lighting, but there are some things that I do want to make sure that they were addressed in here, just because it will only benefit, but I also only have an hour. All right. So just to go ahead and bring this, just to go ahead and just kind of bring this in the full circle and just to kind of get it started. And I hope that when it comes to these particular examples, that it's just a little bit better to understand. And I'm going to be utilizing these specific terms throughout the panel as well, or whenever we go ahead and we have a discussion together. So hue is the purest of color. So whenever I'm talking about things like chroma, or when I'm talking about certain colors, normally it's hue. Tint is when you add white to that color. So as you see here, you see the droplet of the white go ahead and like turning everything, having everything with like a really nice little white overlay over it. That is when you go ahead and you include tint. Shade is when you're including black to your hue. And shade and tone is when you're adding gray. I've noticed that I've heard a lot of these terms more in makeup as well as in when it comes to just being an artist as opposed to in cosplay. So it's always best just to make sure that you have these covered. So tint is white, shade is black, tone is gray. All right. Hue, tint, shade, and tone. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to break down the difference between saturation and value. Now, saturation is the intensity of a color. So when you go ahead and you have 100% of saturation of red, it's that really beautiful fire engine red, that really nice, bright fire engine red, while a soft pastel pink is only at 20% of the saturation of that hue. So it really is the intensity and just how strong that color is. How much of that color do we have? And value is the brightness of that color. So now we're going back and utilizing that tint, tone, and shade, right? So now we're understanding more of the value is the brightness of a color. So we can have that same fire engine red that's at 100%. And while we can have a muddy brick red, and that's only at 20% of the value. So value is brightness, saturation is intensity. Okay. Now we're going back a little bit towards to elementary school. We're going to start discussing a little bit of the little things that we've learned where we have warm colors and we have cool colors. Warm colors are normally depicted as I have it here for like red to yellow. I also have a little bit of like a warmer purple as opposed to the traditional cool colors, which is normally green to deep purple. Now, the fun thing about this is that when you start experimenting with colors and understanding colors, is that these aren't as rigid as you would think they are. You can have a warm blue, you can have a cool red, but it all depends on undertones and things like that. But for now, go ahead and go with the basics. We have red to yellow, we have our Roys, and then we have our G-bibs, okay? Now, we're going to get started with primary colors. Now, primary colors are the colors in which that cannot be made by mixing other colors. There is a huge debate in the artist community whether red, yellow, and blue are, or we have magenta, cyan, and yellow. But for now, just so we can go ahead and just kind of clear, just to go ahead and just get through this, we're just going to keep it simple with red, yellow, and blue. And those are the ones that cannot be made by mixing other colors. Now, colors, secondary colors are colors which can be made by utilizing two primary colors. So we have red and yellow, which make orange, and orange is our secondary color. We have yellow and blue, which makes green, and then we have blue and red, which makes purple, okay? Now, tertiary colors are colors which can be made by utilizing one primary color and one secondary color. And when you're naming your tertiary colors or your tertiary colors, you always name them with the primary color first. Okay, so we have yellow and orange, which is why we call it yellow orange. We have to remember we're having our primary color first. Yellow green, obviously yellow green, and then we have blue green, which is blue green. All right. So now we have our primaries, our secondaries, and then our tertiaries. All right, so now we have the full color wheel. Now we're going to start going into some terminology and some certain palettes that can be utilized when it comes to your cosplay. Now, this doesn't just apply to you sewing and your outfit. This can also apply to wonderful things like your props. This can include to your makeups. This can go to even your wig styling, all aspects when it comes to cosplay. You can apply this to. All right. So we're going to start with monochromatic, and then you'll also see when it comes to my examples, all the different fandoms that I'm a part of. I am not ashamed. I love them all. So with this one, with monochromatic, we have this wonderful example here of one color. And then what we're doing is that we're utilizing the saturation. Now remember, the saturation, we have the value, which was the brightness. And then for saturations, we have the intensity. All right. So we're utilizing saturation and hues or color to stretch the same color as much as you would like. So we are taking this one color and we're going and we're stretching it to the utmost limits, from adding more white, adding black, adding gray, all those wonderful things, because those are our neutrals, to this one color. And we see here with Kid, we have yellow is actually our monochromatic, as our monochromatic pattern. So it's very good for single subjects, and it can be extremely striking and give off a really powerful aura or atmosphere, which is why it works so well for our character here. So we see here that we have a lot of whites, a lot of blacks. We have gray for his little neck piece here, but we're really only utilizing the color yellow. So you'll see with his skin tone here, it's a very, very pale yellow. And then once we go ahead and we up the saturation to go ahead and bring in his eyes as well. So this is really nice, like I was saying before, with like the single subject. You'll also see throughout history a lot of wonderful paintings with like an all red or all blue and all those wonderful things. And it's, if utilized right and when really exploring the utmost possibilities with just this one color, it can be extremely well executed. Okay. Okay. So now we have Analogous, and I have my little peridot right here. So this is using colors that are adjacent on the color wheel. So for this one, I have an example here. Well, technically two examples here. So we'll go ahead, we'll look at my color wheel right now. So when it comes to colors that are adjacent on the color wheel, we're utilizing three colors that are side by side. And then on here, you'll see that we have the blue, we have the indigo and violet and blue. So blue, indigo, and violet. And for peridot, you'll notice that we go ahead, we scoot a little more to the side because it takes a full set, a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. Now remember, we have the primaries, we have the secondaries, which made out of two primaries, and then we have the tertiary. All side by side, we need a nice clean set of three. So with peridot, we have the yellow green, and we have the green. Boom. So we have our Analogous. So it can be found in nature, which puts you more at ease when looking at it. And I believe that it's because, we're so used to seeing it. We're so used to seeing like wonderful forests, like fields of grass. That's kind of the feel I get whenever it comes to Analogous. It always kind of reminds me of, like, you see when you're going through a forest, you'll see like the wonderful leaves of like yellows and greens and yellow greens, and just seeing it for miles. Wonderful, peaceful moments is normally whenever you see Analogous really depicted well. And also Peridot. She's not peaceful. Okay, so now we're going into complementary. Now, colors that are opposite on the color wheel is known as complementary. It could also be called contradictory or complementary, depending on how you utilize them. Normally, the weaker color is the one that's used the most, or the one that's not as bright or not as intense. So it all depends on like when you're really kind of taking this and you're understanding the saturation as well as the value of the weaker color and really expanding on that one. And then you'll have your wonderful pops of color with your stronger color. That is how a lot of times that's how either complementary or contradictory is utilized. Now, these are the opposite side of the color wheel. Normally you'll have a way more intense color or a weaker color, but you never truly have it at 50-50, because the eye gets very confused. It gets very confused whenever it's looking at the subject, whether is it when it's really cut in half, it's a bit jarring. And that's what we don't want. We want to leave the eye around. So I have poison ivy here. It's beautiful, beautiful picture of poison ivy. And what we're doing here is that our eyes are naturally seeking the bits of red because of how well the weaker color is used, i.e. green. So we have an entire palette of wonderful greens that are like lighter, that are darker, that's utilizing the tints, the shades, and the tones. So we see that she's laying on grass. She sees like these wonderful leaves, these vines are coming all around her. But then you'll see the sharp teeth. You'll see her hair always standing up right down even to her red nails, to her lips, her eyes, her shirt that's barely buttoned. And then when it comes to leading our eye, we're following all the eye to the red things. We don't even see that there's a soldier, an undead soldier in the bottom corner right here. And it's like, I see if you're on, you'll see at the bottom line of the picture because it's so fitting and it works so well with the rest of the green in the picture that you'll see the soldier there covered in the same green tones as everything else, but it's still so well hidden, even though it is right in your face because we were too busy looking at the red. And that is such a wonderful power when it comes to complementary. And now you'll also see when it comes to, um, you'll also see this pattern often in, or this palette. You'll see it in a lot of sci-fi uh, movie posters. I think Valerian was the last one that I saw that utilized the orange and blue, which is what I used in the corner when I used in the corner example. A lot of sci-fi will go ahead and utilize that orange and blue. And split complementary. This one this one's a little bit tricky, I will say. And I wish I had a color wheel for this one, but just to go ahead and just kind of emphasize, or just to go ahead and make it a little easier to understand, let's say you utilize orange and blue, and then you'll also use red and green. So that's when it comes to split complementary, it's more or less like instead of having two sets, it's one color. You go to the opposite, and then you use the two colors on either side of the opposite color. So instead of using the direct opposite, you're using the two colors that surround the opposite color. All right, so we have Genie here. Obviously, his main color is blue. So when we're thinking about complementary or contradictory, we immediately know that the opposite of blue is orange. So instead, what we do is that we split. We go on either side of orange, and now we're using a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red. So you'll see here with a lot of like his with his cuffs, you'll see it with like the red of his mouth, and you'll see the red sash as well. So all those wonderful elements there kind of show you where you could have used orange just to go and just keep it complementary, but instead we have it just a little bit weirder when it comes to our split complementary. And these are normally utilized for a lot of crazy characters, a lot of high energy colored characters that are just all over the place, which is why it's so fitting for a character like Genie. All right. And now we are going to Triadic. Now, Triadic is utilizing three colors that are equal distance from each other on the color wheel. So this can be found in a lot of action-packed characters, a lot of playful or eventful characters, which is a little bit different from the split complementary. I utilized Crazy when it came to Genie just because of when it comes to Genie in itself, he's always like, he's very like animated, more or less. Whereas when it comes to Triadic, these are more like action-packed. 9 times out of 10, you'll see a protagonist like this, which is why I have Sailor Moon on here, utilizing the exact colors that are equally spaced on my example in the corner there. But then it's also like Superman. He's also mainly blue and red, and then he has a little bit of yellow in his symbol. And also the Joker, even though it's not the same colors, it's still the same color scheme because we're utilizing orange, green, and purple. And that's still triadic because it's still three equal colors that are equally spaced around the color wheel. All Might as well. Okay, so Tetratic. Now this one is also known as double complementary. I touched on this a little bit earlier when it came to the split complementary, but when it comes to double complementary, this is normally broken into sets of two because it's just so much color happening. So much color is happening all around. And you can't have them equal. Similar to the regular complementary, we have one weaker color that has taken over for most part. And then we have the pops of color from the opposite side. Now we're working double time with this one. So with this character here, we have the green eyes, but then with her full outfit, she has a large, deep red stripe that goes all the way down the middle of her jumpsuit. And then we have the yellow necklace, we have the yellow earrings, the pieces in her hair as well, all very nice yellow pieces. But then we also have the blue on the outside of I'm sorry, the purple on the outside of her jumpsuit as well. So you'll see little things here and there that kind of like paying homage to little things. To go ahead and play off of the other colors. So yes, we have that large, deeply with the small value of red all the way down the middle. But then we'll also have the soft pink that's the undertone of her lips to go ahead and match with the green in her eyes, as well as the small bits of green in her main hairpiece. But then we have a whole bunch of these yellow pieces all the way up here, just to go ahead and just to make way and to just kind of play off of the deep purple that we have encompassing the rest of her suit. But this is good. These are normally utilized with characters who are a bit of a mystery, that are that we don't quite know, that we're still trying to figure out, and it's almost as if the color itself plays a guessing game almost with the person who's either watching the series or who's choosing to cosplay this, or like really kind of like unraveling the mysteries of what this character is. Okay, so now we're going to go and we're going to mosey on through the makeup tips. And these are just some things that I've learned, some things that I have, uh, that I've kind of discovered as an artist and learning makeup on my own to try and figure this out. So, cool makeup has a blue base, and warm shades have a yellow base. And every color, and I know I said this earlier before in the panel, that every color has a warm or cool base. And it's true. You'll go ahead and you can have cool reds, you can have warm purples, and it all really depends on that undertone that's really utilized, whether it is that blue base or that yellow base. And there are even things where I forgot who makes it, but it's been such a great tool to have in my makeup kit, where sometimes it just doesn't quite work and I need to go ahead and change that tone. There is it's almost like a lipstick tube in itself, but when you go ahead and you reveal the makeup, when you turn it up, half of it is blue and half of it is yellow. So whenever you're wearing certain makeups, if you would like to have a warmer tone, then you can utilize that yellow side, or if you want a cooler tone, you can use that blue side. Definitely very good. Definitely a very good cheat and a very good thing to really go ahead and keep in your makeup bag. All right. Complementary colors, if used right, can work to your advantage. And this is absolutely true. We saw this earlier in the complementary with the poison ivy, that we didn't even notice the soldier that was there in the bottom, even though it was so much in the forefront of the entire picture. But this could also work to your advantage when it comes to your cosplay, to your props, to your wigs, everything like that. I normally, like, when it comes to certain things, like if I want a certain thing to stand out, like for example, we go ahead and we could have things like Agnes's little brooch that she had. It was just so pure and so bright that it was hard to miss. Little things here and there where certain people, whenever they wear like an all green ensemble and then you have red contacts, that is stunning. And that will definitely go ahead. And whenever people see you or they see your cosplay and they approach you, that is the first thing that they're going to see because of how you utilize that contradictory colors. Let's see. Darker lipsticks age you, and lighter shades make you look younger. Now, this is a really cool trick that you can use whenever you're trying to either match whether you're either cosplaying a schoolgirl or you're cosplaying the teacher, things like that. I normally like utilizing a lot of dark colors when it just comes to makeup in general, but there are times where I do go with either neutrals or very light colors, lighter shades of pink and stuff like that when I'm cosplaying a character that is younger, because the darker shades, they slim your lips just slightly to go ahead and give a really nice camera trick. And of course, when it comes to younger uh, characters, when you have those lighter colors, it goes ahead and it makes your lips seem bigger than what they actually are. So you have that nice youthful plumpness to it, as opposed to like the darker, slimmer ones. But you can also wear whatever you want. It's up to you. Um, as I was saying, yeah, lighter shades make your lips look bigger. That is exactly why. When it comes to darker lipsticks, or lighter lipsticks, but just stuff in general, from like if you're using a lighter pink for your blushes, or if you're choosing to use like deeper raspberries, it all really just depends on what you're trying to go when it comes to these things. And then also, complementary colors can help neutralize discoloration. Now, this was one that I had to learn the hard way. I there were it was like a perfect example is when I went to Ulta. I didn't know what I was doing. The person who helped me also did not know what they were doing, and they had me use it was a foundation stick, but what it had is that it had a little bit of green makeup in the middle of it. It was very interesting to have. It was very, very cool. But I used that foundation as a base, and I was very casket ready. I looked dead. I looked like a zombie. It was no go. But that's also because I have a lot of yellow and red undertones. And whenever it comes to these yellow and red undertones, when I utilize that green base foundation and I used it all over my skin, I looked like I was the undead. Now, if you were to have a lot of, if you have a lot of redness, then you go ahead and you utilize that type of foundation. Like uh, I believe it's whenever you have those with that extra bit of redness, rosalia, something like that. Whenever you have an excessive amount of redness, then that's when you go ahead and you use little things like that. Because I'm an artist and I have bags under my eyes all the time, because all I do is art. That's okay. That's the life that I live. That's why, and I love it. But I do have dark circles under my eyes. And normally, when it comes to those undertones, that's like a deeper blue or purple when it comes to those heavy bags that you have on, or the discoloration that you have under your eyes. In which case, what you can do is that there are a lot of color corrections that are used for that are like kind of like a peach, an orange, maybe a little bit of yellow, something like that, to go ahead and just really kind of cancel that out and really give you um, a graying color, as opposed to your deep blues and purples that are naturally appearing. When you go ahead and you use those peaches and oranges and yellows to contradict those colors, then that actually starts applying a graying effect. And because it causes a graying effect, it really did neutralize the discoloration that you originally had. You put on your foundation, and if utilized right, you should go ahead and it should be a completely good palette without any discoloration on top. And light and makeup, light and makeup stores are mostly orange and yellow, which makes everyone look better. Now, this is something that I fought with for a long time. And there was a point where I would go to a MAC store. I really enjoyed their products, stuff like that. But I always had an issue with the floating head syndrome. And I know y'all know what I mean. Whenever you have your foundation, it looks great in the store, but then when you're trying it on the next day and your neck is completely different color than your head, that is why. when you're sitting there and you are under this orange lighting, and you'll notice too, whenever you're in these stores, a lot of times they have a lot of heavy posters, a lot of large posters that are blocking out a lot of the light, so they can go ahead and they can introduce you, or they can go ahead and they can show you these makeup techniques and stuff like that under their lighting, which is normally an orangish yellow base. Mm. So when you're trying on this foundation, everything looks great. Everything looks like it matches. Everybody looks a little better in like the orangish yellowish light, particularly if you have those undertones under your skin. So it looks pretty swank. It looks pretty wonderful. And then that's why when you have those like those mist colors. So what I suggest, and this is what I've started doing, is that when I go ahead and I swatch. Yes, I swatch what they suggest, but then I also do a couple shades lighter and a couple shades darker. I step out and I make sure, at least when it comes to the place that used to go to before COVID. Whenever I stepped out, I made sure that I was under very natural light. I was under the sun. I try and make sure that it's not really a cloudy day, because cloudy days are more or less gives you a more of a bluish light. But I try and make sure that it's like a nice sunny day when I'm going, and I'm trying makeup and everything like that, because that is the one that I'm gonna get the closest to my skin tone. So I go out and I double check just to go ahead and see which color actually does match me at the time of like a nice bright day. Okay. And don't limit yourself when it comes to creativity. And I can't stress this enough. I absolutely can't. This is just a guide for everyone who's asking, for anyone who's like particularly curious about these topics. I just always really enjoy talking about these topics, and I just love rattling off all these wonderful things about color theory. But this isn't a guide to hinder your creativity. This isn't a way to kind of stunt uh, what you want to do. Your imagination is limitless, and so should your art whenever you're depicting it. And don't be afraid to experiment, especially when it comes to color. Color is fun, color is wonderful, vibrant, and just adds so much more to whatever it is you're creating, and just so much more to life in general, that it would be a shame just to hinder yourself. So go ahead and experiment. It's like, and that's really it. That's really the base of it all. Just have fun with it. It's color. It's color. And it's cosplay. Just have fun with it. Alrighty. And that is all that I have for you guys today. And that is the end of my panel. Let me see here. So let me go ahead and let me stop the sharing. Okay. And then let me see what we have here. All right. So that is all I have today. Thank you again so much. If you guys have any questions for me, by all means, I'm here and I'm reading the chat now. But as well, if you don't wish to, or if you have a question a little bit later, then by all means, you can always go ahead and reach me, particularly at my Facebook as well as my Instagram, which is Kurenai Kiba. Okay. I am planning on, like I was saying before, I'm getting better when it comes to Twitter. And then as well, I am beginning to revamp my YouTube and to really go ahead and start utilizing it for more tutorials and stuff like that, just so it's easier for everybody when it comes to questions. Because I always believe that a visual is way better than just like speaking. All righty. So that is all that I have. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate this. Thank you for having me, HBCU Con. This has been fabulous. And you all have a wonderful day.